Hi and welcome to another episode on the Sunday Morning Brew with Sahas and Krishna. The following episode is a conversation with K.Krishna Sagar, a Harvard Business School certified organizational strategist, global expert in emotional intelligence, author of 3 best-selling books, and also happens to be my father. To support this podcast, watch till the very end and subscribe. Ladies and gentlemen, here's episode 6. Dad, it's great to have you back, and it's been a while.
Likewise, I always enjoy interacting with you, and I missed you for many weeks. I suppose this is because of the CBSE exams you wrote.
Of course, it's because of the board exams, but it's good to be back, as you said. And but for this episode, I want to have you speak about why Byju is on its path to failure. Now, it's a hot topic. It's happening live as we speak. And just to give you a little background of what's happening right now, we know that Byju's is this it was a mega Indian edtech platform. And it's fair to say that for a certain period of time, it was the dominant figure in that market. But just in 1 year, it has faced ED surges and it has faced valuation drops. Investors were pretty upset about it. And it was valued at $22 billion. And right now it's valued at $11 billion. That's a halfway cut. And more than that, BlackRock, which is a big time investment firm, invested huge money into Byju's, but then marked down their valuation to $8.4 billion. So it's like the best nightmare any business could have. So let me get straight to the point. Why is this happening with Byju's?
Now, I need to make a disclaimer before I start this interaction. This is not a listed company. It's certainly a company which is on its way to an IPO. Hopefully, it will get there. But it has a lot of public investments, private investments, and there is a lot of capital which went into it from different sources, and especially globally, also locally, domestically. Now, that actually makes it not so private for us to discuss because there is nothing private about Byju's fall right now. So that is why we are talking. So the disclaimer is that it's not private. We can discuss, and it can also become a good example in a bad way for the startups as to what they should not be doing. So that's why it is quite educative. So I'm glad that you have picked that subject for our interaction today, and it will benefit a lot of people, young people especially.
Right, that's true. So, Dad, why is this happening to Byju's and why is it happening now?
Yeah, so see, no one is exempt from failure. And as the old saying goes, failures are stepping stones for success. But when you bring in so much of investments from firms which in turn take a lot of investments from outside, so it is no more a learning when you are this big. The fall will be very hard, and the learnings cannot be reapplied by the same company because we don't know whether it will survive this onslaught of their own. But many startups across the world can learn. If your valuation spikes to the level of 18, 19, 22 billion dollars in a matter of 1.5 years to 2 years, and a company being only 11 years or 12 years in after it formed, then what got to you? I personally believe, this is my objective professional analysis, that there is not one reason, there are many, for the continuous fall of Byju's. I would call it fall from the grace, fall from super success. I believe this is self-sabotage, and this is utter mismanagement of resources, of earlier plans, mismanagement of business model, mismanagement of financial resources, mismanagement of strategic plan, mismanagement of trust, accountability, transparency. So the list is long. But the heart of the matter is, when you scale up to a new height, you need to stop and think, what am I doing? Am I doing the wrong thing the right way or the right thing the wrong way?
Okay.
What they did is right, but they did it in the wrong way. And the approach towards doing right need to be professional, need to be objective, need to be bereft of fraud, bereft of manipulation. But that didn't happen. There is no transparency, there is no accountability.
But would you call that a conscious effort to manipulate, or were they just naive? Were they just ignorant? And maybe they were great at building the product, but maybe they were not so great at building a business, right? It happens with most tech companies today. So where's the catch? Where do you think it went wrong? Is it the management? Is it the very guy, the CEO, the founder? What is it? Who triggered this path of manipulation and fraud?
I'm not stating manipulation and fraud as certainty,
Right.
but from the public information which is driven by the media, it looks as if there is a intentional manipulation. The fraud issue will come out only after the inquiry by ED and income tax and the rest of the agencies. So I am not actually telling that, I am not alleging that they have indulged in a intentional fraud. I'm not doing that. I'm only saying, going by what the public information is right now, it looks as if there is a lot of manipulation, which could eventually lead to a fraudulent practice. I'll give an example. Now, if you're accountable and if you're a professional organization, you need to file your reports, especially the financial reports. When you have sought so much of investments in dollar value, and it's almost $780 million in the first round, almost close to $1 billion in overall. Now, in multiple rounds, that is the equity investment. But then you're looking at a debt equal or beyond that. I mean, it's almost $1.8 billion, inclusive of some interest there, which is just the debt. So if you're looking at a debt equity ratio, you cannot function as a startup with mere revenues of 2,560 crores revenue, which they were showing, and have yourself almost $4.5 billion of investments coming in one or two flows. So you have to be accountable. There is no option here. So that accountability is missing. So the core of the failure is when you are unaccountable, irresponsible for the core of your business, which is finance, the capital. Then what are you serious about? What are you accountable about? What are you responsible about? The product comes later now.
Right.
But I'm not saying that the business was not successful, as you said.
Right.
The business model was successful. As long as from 2011 all the way till 2018, Byju's business model was successful. That is why so many companies invested, so many equity businesses invested, equity capital businesses, venture capital businesses. They have invested in such a big way that actually goes to show, I mean, the kind of noise they have made in the market with a successful product, that even Chang, Mark Zuckerberg's wife, and CEO is Mark Zuckerberg, but his fund also invested into this company, first time in India. So it's a big investment drawing business. So business model was successful.
Right.
But where they goofed up is what I'll tell you when you ask me a specific question.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting, Dad. It's ironic you speak about accountability being a major player there and being a problem, because
It's not actually ironic.
yeah,
It has turned ironic at
no,
Byju's.
it's ironic because the founder of Byju's just a few months back put out a video lecturing others, and in fact trying to inspire young startup founders on accountability and being responsible. What do you have to say about what the founder believes in, and how the founder's mentality and the founder's true nature impacts the overall business, especially when it's a startup?
No, it's a fantastic question. We cannot take the founder out of the business, despite the fact that he's the one who started the business. The idea of virtual learning was initiated by Byju Ravindran, and then he packed it well, he sold it well, and he made it into an app, Byju app, and then he went ahead into the market. And when you're asking me, does a founder have anything to do with the fall too? While the credit of success goes to him, so is the the discredit of failure. You cannot escape. You are the founder. You take both the roses and the brickbats. So I feel Byju somewhere couldn't keep up with the strategic growth of his business,
Okay.
because the business grew leaps and bounds in about 1.5 years from 2018 towards 2022. He couldn't manage the growth. So managing growth is as essential as surviving in a market. So there are a lot of businesses which require 10 lakh capital. input, an investment into its business, 20 lakh, 30 lakh, they would survive.
Right.
So that's the survival phase. And when you survive that phase, you go into a real establishment of yourself as a player in the market. But when then you get almost like so many $1 billion, I mean, what do you do with that money? And how do you grow? Do you grow diagonally? Do you grow in breadth? Do you grow in bandwidth? Do you grow in extension of your brand into different markets or into different categories of your own business?
Or into acquisitions?
No, but the acquisition is a strategic growth plan.
Okay. Okay.
No, that is what I'm saying. You're very, very right in pointing acquisitions.
Right.
That's a goof up. I personally feel when you're as a strategist,
Right.
when you are managing growth, you better manage growth gradually.
Okay.
I mean, you cannot become a GE or a GM or a Microsoft overnight. They took time. Anything which you build takes time. So you cannot be in a rush to make things happen and compete with the Facebooks or Googles of the world in 10 years. Or when you got lucky with your investments, at a time the capital value was only almost 1% or 0%.
Right.
People dumped all the money onto you. And then you go on an acquisition spree. It's like taking a cart and going into a shop and, buying whatever you want just because you got money in your, you got capital.
Yeah.
But that's not how you do. And then you check his acquisitions.
Okay.
His acquisitions are about 22 companies. 22 companies he acquired. Now, if Byju acquires 22 companies in 2 years of operations
Oh my God.
after capital infusion,
Right. Yeah.
what are you doing? It's a suicide. It's a suicide. I mean, even if you acquire 2 companies,
Okay.
how do you integrate those? Acquisition is not a joke. Mergers are also not a joke.
Right.
Just leave alone an acquisition is such a big thing. You're buying out a company, meaning that you're buying out their business model,
Right.
you're buying out their employees, you're buying out their organizational culture,
Their assets, their liabilities,
everything. Yeah, those are at least on the ledgers
Right.
or on the books. But the softer part of organizational culture, business model, management style, and their orientation to growth. If you're acquiring the whole package, as you said, the financial accounts headers, along with the softer side of the business, which is very critical, core management. Now, how do you integrate 22 companies into your business in less than 2 years? They'll all fall apart if you don't integrate, and they couldn't integrate.
It's very surprising. So, tell me, Dad, can this happen to any business?
Can happen to any business.
Okay.
See, they're good problems, they're bad problems. You can always categorize them. So there is a problem of I'm growing. Now, how do I channelize the growth? It's a good problem to have.
Right.
You can be excited about it. Maybe it can take your time. It will, push you to a corner to think more, and you should take decisions on the flight. But it's a good problem to have. What's a bad problem? Greed.
Oh, I see.
I wish to grow all around the place. I wish to deviate from my business model. How do I do it? I wish to make more money quickly. How do I do it?
Right.
If your focus is on making money more quickly and not consolidating your business for an eternal revenue plan and not to follow a business plan which gave you success already. His business, I don't know what business plan he has today because it's so confusing,
Right.
but his earlier plan when he started off in 2011 can be refined. I'm not saying business plan gets stuck. You can refine it, you can expand it, but you cannot break it. If you break away from your core business which gave you success, what are you doing? Very rarely that a broken business plan will give you, a business model will give you success.
Interesting. So now this takes me to my question of internal performance. I still remember back when I was in 9th or 10th grade, you used to get these cold calls from sales executives from Byju's asking how Sa's doing in his academics, does he need any tuitions? When you look at it from an eagle's eye, you realize that it's a very coercive sales model. It's a very push-based sales model, as they say. Do you think that was the right strategy to have for an edtech platform? Push-based sales.
Yeah, many people might have different views. I think Byju had his own view of reaching out personally to people, make cold calls and all that. Whether it's ethical or not ethical is a question to actually ponder. But I believe that a business is as successful as its draw from the customer's needs. if there is a need, the customers will come over to you, or they will reach you out. You don't need to reach them out. But let's say a business like insurance, even insurance businesses are not calling people anymore. If they have schemes which fit the need of the market and the individual needs of of a family or a professional, they'll reach out. Now, how good is your product depends on whether you go for a push or a pull.
Right.
And when you are an online business, when you are especially an edtech app, then you are supposed to be savvy enough to reach out to people. And then if you are unable to reach out savvily, then the savage method is not what will get you a good sound bites from the market, a
Right.
good talk. It generated bad talk. So going out into cold call method, I'm not saying it's bad. Every business has its own approach to sales. But does your business require a cold call method? Or people walking into villages and trying to pitch a farmer and manipulate the guy's need and get him stuck with a debt of an amount which he cannot afford to pay, and let him break away from the product because what you need is only money, not to educate that child for whom you have pitched the farmer who was short of cash. So you got him into a debt mode. So these are all bad practices, certainly bad practices. And I don't know why Byju's needed to get into it. I understand that I had to package revenue well, and they had to showcase it to the investors. And out of in 2018, they have, I think even before 2018, they have announced that they have 90,000 subscribers,
Right.
and out of that, the paid subscribers are a portion.
Okay.
Actually, the next time when they talked about it, it was 150 million today.
Okay. Right.
And then I don't know how many paid subscribers.
Paid subscription.
So now, and they're not transparent about it. They're not transparent about the revenue still. There are no financial
surprising.
reports.
Yeah.
There are no financial reports on their acquisition costs, their overall capex. There is no report. They are not even submitting it to the government. The government had to go in and
Oh my God.
raid the offices.
Right.
The ED had to inquire now. So they have come to a situation that it looks as if it has become a fraudulent company. Because which company doesn't have an audited financial reports by the end of the year?
Right.
What is stopping him from giving the financial accounts, the books to the auditor? Auditor resigned.
Oh God.
Deloitte is a auditing company which
Right.
they have retained, and it has resigned. And few of the investors who are on board, the directors, they have resigned. Now, what does it indicate? It indicates that there's something very big, bad happening. And that is why people are running away from that business, because they don't want to take the backlash.
Right. So from an investment standpoint, from an investor's standpoint, when you're investing in a startup such as Byju's, let's say you invested in it 2017, 2018, when things were going well, when there was not too much backlash, when there was not too much bad news about Byju's, what are the early signs that investors could see in a company which is about to go down or has values of not being very transparent and stuff?
See, investors have their own rush. They have their own targets. They have their own token of investment goals. Because the investment companies, which are venture capital firms, they are invested into.
Right.
They are not putting it from their pocket. They have huge investment flows into their company to ensure that the venture capital firm invests wisely and gives back the returns to their investors. Now they have pressure too, because if I have say $1 billion in my venture capital firm as fund, and if I'm not doing anything about it, I'm paying interest.
Right.
So or I'm showing myself as a bad investor to my investors. Your firm's goal is to invest. So just think about a business where your goal, your revenue is an investment. So you have to make investments. So people, most of the venture capitalist firms go with a law of average. So instead of scrutinizing every company to the core, they don't have the kind of resources nor time. So they just look at what the client has presented, and then they go about trying to finish it. So in that process of rushed investments, some companies get lucky, some companies get unlucky, and some companies get, a flood of investments like Byju's.
Right.
And I told you about the time in which they got the funds is when
Exactly.
the capital cost is so low because the bank rates are so low.
Right.
But investors need to be guarded. They're not only burning their investors' cash, but they're also setting bad precedents for the startup ecosystem that anybody who has a business and an idea is invested into without having no scrutiny of their revenue capability, revenue generating capability, or their ability to convert an idea into commercially viable product and get the product to the market to be sold.
Right.
Without having this dots linked, if I'm investing too much into a business, I'm actually pampering some of the individuals who do not have what it takes to build big businesses. Not every small business ours can build a big business. Building a big business is a different breed of management and a different professional bandwidth. And I can clearly see Byju Ravindran doesn't have that kind of a bandwidth. And most of the investments made into this company were flawed because they haven't assessed his capability to turn a small business into a multinational big business, which he promised probably, certainly. But it didn't turn out that way.
Right. How does it reflect? Does it even, do you think it represents, at least to a certain degree, the Indian club of startups?
See, I don't want to have any negative orientation towards the ecosystem as it is,
Right.
because there are many brilliant people who have brilliant ideas, who even have capability to turn the brilliant idea into a brilliant product and go to the market and get the best for their product in terms of the revenue generation capability. They are very qualified people, and our country is now is booming with enterprise zeal, which is amazing. I mean, never in the past it happened that people wanted to enterprise so badly. Even you want to enterprise. So everybody wanted a job in the last decade, till the last decade. Now everybody wants to be in business. So these two extremes are not good. Not good. I'm being open about it.
Okay.
Either extremes are not good. There has to be a balance somewhere in
But
between.
why is that zeal, that excitement in the overall young crowd not very right?
Because if you're not having the competence to run an enterprise, small, medium, large, you will figure it out at least in a year of operation. That's how I look at it. You want to be an entrepreneur? Try it, no problem. But go into the business 1 year, 2 years. And if you're unable to transform your idea into a commercially viable product in 2 years of time, then the idea has no relevance, because it will be of no, it will not have any reference point after 2 years, because things are moving so fast.
Right.
Now, there are stories, exceptional stories of somebody struggling for 10 years and then making it big. Those were old times. Now, if it is 2 years, 3 years, and your product is not even on the table,
Right.
forget about the market, then there is something massively wrong with the founder. Because it's all about the founder in a startup and then his team. But if the founder is not even listening to the team, what do you do? So what I'm saying is, for all the youngsters who are initiating startups, try it, no problem. But as long as you don't burn your life and then fail. So you try it for a few years and see if it works. It works, you continue. If it doesn't work, then you move on. But you might also ask, what is the remedy for this? Lack of competence. What is the remedy? Skill up. So I don't need to say that work for 3 years and leave it, or find an alternative. If you can scale up even before you getting into the business, or while you're on a business, have an open mind. Listen to people. Learn. Don't get stuck with your own idea. Don't get stuck in your own capability curve, saying that, man, I am poised to be a billionaire. I am poised to be Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk. See, you get stuck like that, and you get your head stuck in clouds, and your feet is not on the ground. Then you are in trouble, my man, as a startup owner.
Right.
So the startup is a learning experience. Learning application cycles in every single day. And if you are not doing it, then you are in trouble. So my suggestion to the young folks who are getting into startups, all the best to you. I'm with you. But are you skilling up? If you don't have management skills, ability to look at the commercial viability of the product, and the skills to turn a product and an idea into a product which is saleable, if you don't understand 4Ps, if you don't understand market strategy, if you don't understand the consistency of having a business model and implementing it, first designing a business model and then operating on it, and then working on it, if you don't have the ability to design and implement strategic growth plan like Byju's,
Okay.
unbelievable that I have to take the name of biggest ed tech to say that he doesn't have what it takes to actually design, operate, build, and then overall deploy that strategic plan. He doesn't have a strategic plan. If he had a successful strategic plan, he wouldn't be in this position today.
Wow.
Yeah. So as simple as that. Skill up and get your head out of the clouds. That is my message to the startups.
Where do you think startups can apply the learnings from Byju's? Because obviously, for good or for bad reasons, Byju's has now become the biggest example of how a startup can go towards the path of failure, right? And I genuinely hope they don't go to that point where they're finished. I genuinely hope that they're able to raise some capital and get done with the repayments and the loans. But what are the startup lessons that startups today can learn from Byju's?
Oh, there are many. When you can raise equity, why go into debt? Don't get greedy. I'm just listing out lessons.
Right.
When your valuation is high and going on a spree of growth, then why do you want to stymie yourself by deviating from your business model? You got your valuation because you're good at one part of that business, one part of that market. You are able to get revenues for an idea, for a product placed as a niche in the market.
Right.
Now, that is because of your business model. And if you end your business model by deviating completely from it, like I give you an example of this is the core learning I think all startups should do. First of all, freeze your business model till at least a certain time before you refine it or expand it. Don't completely deviate. Now, people have paid you for something and you're deviating into a different business. Akash acquisition
Right.
is an example because Akash is not an online platform. It's an offline tutorial business.
Yeah, right.
Now, why did you acquire Akash with such a huge value? I mean, what is your business model? The core business model is online ed tech.
Right.
Now, why are you going offline? I mean, it's exactly going 360 degrees opposite to your business model. And then you're putting investors' money into it. So tomorrow, if somebody has to ask what is Byju's, what is your business? Is it online or offline?
Right. Yeah.
Are you in ed tech or you're in old ed education model? What are you? So this callousness of just because I have funds, I'll go any which way. And then the greed of I don't want to dilute my stake, I want it all. Thereby, I'll not take capital inflow as an investment, but I'll go for debt. Debt is expensive. Debt can hang you one day, and which is happening right now. The debt is hanging him. So a lot of lessons, but these are very, very clinical management lessons which startups should, and also your team. Your entire team is your family. Then where are the inputs coming from? Where are professionals on the top? Your wife, your brother, your younger brother, your older brother, your nephew, niece. If this is the board, then do they dare to give you inputs? Or are they equipped to give you inputs? Are they skilled enough? Are they competent enough? So you need to have professionals around you. You need to have people who have loyalty and also competence around you and who have courage to openly state what is wrong, what is right, at least from their perspective. They might not be right, but you can listen and you can get multiple inputs from different professionals. So my friend, these are the lessons. I can go on for the entire day about the lessons you can learn because I'm an open-minded person and I always learn. And I believe all young people should stop thinking just because they have access to Google that they know everything.
Or ChatGPT.
Or ChatGPT. Knowledge is not about searching. Knowledge is about assimilating information and applying it to make it knowledge. Okay. Research is not about search or search on Google or ChatGPT. Research is about an intense study of a particular area of work and then you becoming an expert in it. So a lot of words are being misused and the same is happening in startups. Their focus on terminology is more than the focus on running a business and building a team. I wish all entrepreneurs in this country and even the world a hearty congratulations and best wishes because you have the potential to create so many jobs, you have a potential to create so much of value, economic value in this world that if you can have discipline and self-regulation, open mind to learn and ability to acquire competent people on your side, then there is no stopping you. I wish everybody all success.
That's awesome, Dad. The biggest learning that I've had from this particular episode is it's one thing getting to the top and it's another thing staying there for long. So thanks again for having this conversation. To all of you, the viewers, thanks for tuning in.